Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to mute everybody. Again, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions. Thanks for taking the time on a Monday morning to join us to talk about the upcoming changes to the Microsoft 365 licensing, understanding your top three business issues. So we'll walk you through this and tell you kind of what's going to happen and how we're going to be moving forward with it. So our agenda today is to talk about what Microsoft is calling the new commerce experience. What is it? Dates that you need to know, business issues 1, 2, and 3, which are the license changes and the pricing changes, financial liability that comes from that, and reduced flexibility, those are the 2 points kind of to go through today. At the end, we'll talk about key decision points and what our recommendations are. So definition, new commerce experience, it's just what they decided to call it. We have been under what's known as CSP. Microsoft loves their naming convention. So we're moving from CSP to new NCE, the new commerce experience. And we'll get to the dates now. So the dates that we're up against are they launched general availability January 22nd. The reason we're holding this today and not a week ago is because we were still waiting for them to make final decisions. Even though they did launch January 22nd, we didn't have all the information that we needed to be able to get this information out to you all. We are now, if you look at the ideal transition timeline, we're now into February. This is the month that is the ideal time to make a transition. And that is because on March 1st, we have the price increase from Microsoft. We have a slide deck on that to let you know what the price increases are going to be. The good news is on this, if we get you moved over to NCE, New Commerce Experience, prior to March 1, it will lock in your current pricing for the next year. Starting March 10th, every new transaction must go through NCE. So where it gets a little interesting with Microsoft, if you've already got an existing license under the old model and you haven't moved, we can still add to that. We want to get everybody moved over to the new commerce because it will work better for all concerned. And then we don't have you on 2 different items, 2 different kind of platforms, as it were. That's on the back end side. From our perspective, on your side, you are not going to notice a difference other than the increase in license costs and the length of the contract term. And just as a side note, Hector and Rigel and Charlotte, your partner success managers, are on this call. There's a lot of information with Microsoft NCE, and their job is to make sure I don't say anything incorrect, because this has been a bit of a moving target. So they might chime in and say, Michael, a little clarification here. And then starting in July, all transactions are to be moved over to NCE with Microsoft. So those are the important dates to know. So the issue number 1 that we're facing is the change in pricing. I'm going to be honest, Microsoft has not increased their pricing on Office 365 in 10 years. It is not an unreasonable thing for them to increase the pricing as they are on this round. We would prefer that some other things wouldn't happen that they are doing, and we'll get those into there. But the price increase after 10 years is not an unfair thing to do. And several of the next slides are going to talk kind of in the green and the blue, kind of what it is currently, and then what it is with the new experience. So currently under the CSP program, and that's what I referenced before, you actually had a quote unquote annual contract, but it could be canceled at any time. You could move your license counts up and down, and there were no penalties for that. Now, Microsoft, under the new commerce experience, will allow short-term commitments, but they are increasing the price on that as well. So let me start on the bottom right-hand side, long-term commitment for price predictability. If you do not lock in the pricing before March 1, for example, the $20 a month license will be going to $22. That's on an annual commitment. Again, as long as we move it and commit to it before March 1, we can lock in your current $20. But if you want to go to short term, the month-to-month billing, that $22 will have a 20% add-on to have the flexibility of moving to month. That means you can cancel at the end of the month without a penalty, without having to pay. On the right-hand side, our guess is most all of our partners are going to go for the 12-month annual commitment. And the next slide talks about the timeline, actually a couple of slides down, talks about the timeline on that. So we'll walk through how it works. But the bottom line is, if we get you in before March 1, you get to keep your pricing as it is today. After March 1, go ahead, Hector.
Hi, Heather. Hi.
Do you have a question?
No, it was Bruce. Well, I went ahead and muted him.
Okay. So again, if you commit to before March 1, we keep the pricing as is. After March 1, on a 1-year commitment, you get the basic price increase. But if you go month to month, there will be a 20% uplift on that pricing. Okay, moving on to the next deck. So the license changes. Here's the pricing that we have. So the Microsoft Business Basic is going from $5 to $6. That's the license that has email, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams available in it. The Microsoft 365 Business Premium is going from the $20 to the $22. Not very many of you have any of these other licenses, but the E1 goes from 8 to 10, the E3, 20 to 23, and the E5 goes from 35 to 38. Now, these are going to be applied globally, and we do not expect changes for nonprofit or education or consumer at this point. So again, most all of you are going to be affected by these top two, the $5 to the $6 and the 20 to the 22. I'm going to back up the slide once more. As long as we get in before March 1, we can keep those prices. If after that you did the long-term commitment, the 1 year, it would be right here, the $6 and the 22. If you wanted the monthly, it would be 20% more on top of the $6 and the $22. I will stop there to see if there's any questions. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself, or you can put it into the chat. And Rigel or Charlotte, if you'd keep an eye out on the chat for me. Okay, without questions, then we'll move to the upgrade and the downgrade. So again, legacy is what we're currently operating under. Then you have the new commerce. First, let me get one thing clear. You are buying licenses that are tied to your account. Those licenses can be moved from one person to another. So it's not if you let somebody go or somebody leaves that you can't repurpose that license for somebody else. That is absolutely doable. Currently, you can upgrade, you can buy new, and you can cancel your existing subscription. They're called SMB, small medium business SKUs. So you can upgrade those as you want. You can also downgrade, and you can assign license to other users. You can also cancel the original subscription. Under new commerce, once you make the 12-month commitment, you are committed for the year for that quantity of licenses. You can upgrade. So let's say that you had 25 licenses and you needed to go to 30, totally doable. Let's say that we start that on March 1, you've got 25, and in June, you need to add another 5 of the same licenses to your subscription. Totally doable. You'll keep the pricing that you have, and it will do what's called co-terminate. So if that original subscription was from March until the end of February next year, if you add the same SKU, if you change the quantity up with the same SKU, it will co-terminate at the end of February. If you add a new SKU, that will create a new 12-month agreement. That's on upgrades. On downgrades, it is only possible at the end of the term. So if you're doing an annual 12-month term, the only time you can downgrade is at, or change the quantity down is at the end of the 12-month term. If you're going month to month, they will not prorate throughout the month. You'll have to wait till the end of the month, and then that license can be canceled. Any questions on this one? So again, now we're going to talk about price, license upgrades and downgrades. Continue this. So again, on the legacy, you had a 12-month price protection. You could also suspend a license. Actually, we never suspended licenses for you. We would just go ahead and cancel them. On the new commerce, again, you've got, if you go month to month, you have a 1-month price protection. If they do another price increase, I think they'd be crazy to do it in the next year. On the annual, you will have a 1-year price protection. So whatever agreement you go into for the length of time, it is protected for that period. You are not able to pause the subscription with the 12-month agreement. Once you're into the agreement, you're locked into that pricing there. Any questions on that one? Okay. So this is the second issue, is the financial liability and the canceling any of your licenses. So on the legacy, used to be, and I'm going to try to walk you through this. So on the top bar, you see I ordered 10 licenses of the M365 Business Standard. On day 10, I decided I didn't need 5 of them. I could drop that down to half. My billing would also go into half at that point, and that was all the way through. Even though it was quote unquote a 12-month agreement, the flexibility that they had built in, you could drop the quantities down. Under new commerce, you're going to notice a change here. Day 1 is when we initiate the order. Day 3, 72 hours later, that is now locked in for the entirety of that 12-month agreement. You notice even if I drop down, even if I made a decrease of the 5 seats, that would do absolutely nothing because the agreement was for 1 year and the billing will stay locked in for the term of that 12-month agreement. The only possible time to make any changes to that is in the first 72 hours. And that is a Microsoft driven. All of this, by the way, as I'm sure you know, is Microsoft driven. You'll notice then at the end of the 12-month agreement, then I could drop down to 5 there and not be billed for that one. Okay. So the reduced flexibility. This is probably the one that bothers us the most. As most everybody on this call knows, we want our partners to remain partners because we're doing right by them and they're happy with our services, not because you're locked into agreement. With Microsoft, the way that this works is you are buying the license, the subscription through your partner, which is us. You cannot cancel that existing agreement. So you have to wait until the end of the subscription term, be that end of the month if you've gone month to month, or the end of the year, depending upon whether you did a month to month or a 12-month. The same way that in our agreements with all of you, we say, if you leave, we'll make it easy for you. We don't expect to lose any partners, but if for some reason this came up, the billing for Office 365 would remain through us, but we would work with another company to make sure that they had all the access that they needed. This is probably the one that we are hearing the most complaints about in our channel, because we really, again, we always believe you stay with us because we're doing right by you. So that does have reduced flexibility on that side. So key decision points that you need to make. When do you make the move to New Commerce Experience? Should you move all of the licenses or some? And what terms make sense? So you will be getting quotes from your partner success managers, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Rachel, who that's going to be coming from. Those should be going out early next week to say, here's the quantity of licenses, here's what you have, and as long as you sign that and send it back to us and we get you moved over before the end of the month, then you can lock in the 12-month agreement. That makes the most sense for all of you, is to get moved over to New Commerce before the end of this month. Just as a favor, if you can return those quotes as quickly as possible, because there are, if you can't tell, there are a lot of moving parts as part of this. And Lisa on the financial side needs to go in and recreate all of these agreements, get everything moved over. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, and we're trying to queue up as much of it as possible early on, so that all we have to do at the end of the month is flip the switch on the final count. So our suggestion is to get everything moved over before the end of this month. Should you move all licenses or some, and what term makes sense? As far as all or some, most of the partners that I know who are on this call don't have a lot of seasonality to their employees. So price point makes sense to move everything over now. For example, if you take that business basic license, which is currently $5, if you go month to month, that's going to go to $6 plus 20%. So it's going to be about $7.20, if my math is correct. Versus if you move it over by the end of this month, you're at $5. It only takes 2 months of that license to pay for keeping it. Not quite. But if you look at the math, if you think you're going to be keeping it most of the year, it makes sense to move it over. If you were going to have seasonality where you might only need a license for a couple of 2 to 3 months, then it probably does make sense to keep some of them under the old way, or move them to a month-to-month on NCE. I'm not going to go too far into depth to that because, again, probably 95% of you on this call have very standardized, have pretty consistent numbers in your staffing. So if you have a question about seasonality, reach out to your partner success managers, Rigel or Charlotte, to kind of talk through the logic of how you should do that. Should you move all or some of the licenses? Again, protecting the current pricing that you have, our suggestion would be that you move all of them. Again, if you have any questions on that, that would be, you can ask at the end or reach out to your partner success manager. As far as the term, likely the 1 year is going to make the most sense for everybody. So our recommendations are determine your core licensing count. Again, the quotes that will be coming out early next week are going to have the license counts that you currently are under. That will be the core licensing count that you would move over. Get these moved over before March 1. Again, late February, the sooner we can do this, the better. And again, if you have seasonal concerns, licenses, reach out to your partner success manager, either Rigel or Charlotte. That was the basics. Now it goes to questions. So I will unmute. Actually, I don't think I can unmute all. Okay, Robin asked. Oh, Robin, great question. If you go annual by March 31, will you be billed annual or monthly? That is on a monthly basis. So it is an annual commitment billed monthly. There is the option to prepay if you want, but you don't get any of a discount for that. Who else has any questions? Again, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or type it into the chat window. Well, that might have been easy then. Let me go ahead and see if I can unmute everybody just to see if you have any questions to ask. And for some reason, it looks like I've lost the ability to unmute. I can mute you all, but I can't. I can't. I can only mute you all. I can't unmute. So if you have any questions, again, go ahead and unmute or just type them into the chat window.
Hey, Michael, this is
Yes.
Ruswa Cooper.
Hi, Ruswa.
Hi, can we have a variety of different licenses, meaning some on monthly or the core on the annual, and then a handful on monthly, depending on our staffing load?
Absolutely, you can. And reach out to your partner success manager to talk about that, Ruswa. There are a couple of different options. I don't want to muddy the waters today because it's with the amount of changes that we just threw at you, it would be really easy to muddy these waters. But yeah, you can keep some on the annual and you can have some go month to month. Absolutely. Especially if you have seasonality, that really makes the most sense.
Thank you.
So Michael,
yes,
you threw a fair amount of information at us there. If we commit before March 1st, the prices will not go up. Is that the case?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then the big downgrade on that is that we can't cancel, onesie twosie accounts throughout the year, or can't lose the price that we're paying for those. We're committed for the full year.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And this is, you're seeing more and more with what's called SaaS, software as a service.
Sure.
We are seeing more and more that companies are moving to annual commitments with a month-to-month billing structure, but you're making an annual commitment when you do that.
Okay. And so really for a lot of us, the decision would be, I think, that do we want to commit all or leave a tier at the top that go month to month to pay that extra 20% on top of it to have that flexibility? That's the way it seems to me.
Yes. Well, remember, it would be the new price plus the 20% to maintain that flexibility.
It would be 22 plus 20% on top of that.
Yeah. Now, there is, depending upon the timeline, the CSP billing, and again, I don't want to go too deep to muddy the waters, talk with a partner success manager, but there is a timeline that you can keep some licenses off the new commerce. It starts getting pretty muddy there, though. The cleanest is to move over to NCE, but again, reach out to your partner success manager, because again, across our entire partner base, my guess is we're going to have probably only 5% that needs to do kind of that playing around with some of the seasonality.
Yeah, okay. Very good. That helps. Thanks, Michael.
Of course.
Hi, this is Hector with TLC. One thing to add to these changes. So let's say, for example, you have that Microsoft 365 Business Premium. That price is going up this year, but if you lock it in for this year, the price increase to that $22 won't happen until next year.
That's the reason we're pushing so hard to get these quotes out to you early next week, is so that we can get all of you locked in to keep the pricing that you have.
Okay, that makes sense. What is the month next year? Is it March 1st of 2023 that we would expect the increase?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it'll be 12 months after we pop it over.
Michael,
Robin, I think. Yes, ma'am.
yeah, I have a question. If we were to create another position, as we have grown and are continue to grow, if we add another, what was it, another license?
Additional license.
Yeah, would it be better? I mean, depending maybe what time of the year is, to go month to month until we get to that annual and put it on the annual. Can you do that, or do you have to start a new annual subscription? Because if not, you're going to have 3 or 4 annual as you add people on. So
Hector may have to clarify with me on this one. So let's say March 1 you start and you have 20 of the business premium licenses. Okay. And in July, you need to add 3 more people to the business premium licenses. That price, that contract will co-terminate after 9 months, because you're not adding a new SKU, you're upgrading the quantity of an existing SKU. And Hector, Rigel, confirm this with me, but if they're at the $20 a month for the year and they add onto that SKU, that same $20 is still honored in pricing, correct?
Correct. As long as it's added to that same agreement, the price will only change if it's a different type of license or a different type of agreement. For example, they are currently offering a 1-year, 2-year, and a 3-year commitment. So if you get a new employee that has the same license as the previous employee, it won't extend or change the pricing. But if you select a different license, for example, you had a license that the contract was for the entire Office suite, and this employee only needs an email license, then that is a new agreement. So any different type of license will be a new agreement. Yeah. Our recommendation, yeah, exactly. You have to add it to the current one. Our recommendation is to try to standardize across the company, just to make sure that everybody has the same type of license. This way you don't get hit with that extra 20% and you're not extending those contracts.
Okay, I was just wondering if, like I said, if you went month to month, or it starts a whole new annual, but if we could go month to month and add them in, so we're
No, he
consistent.
said you can increase it
Okay,
for the last 9 months of the annual contract.
okay,
So your bill would increase, but you just can't decrease
Okay.
your quantity.
okay,
So it's
Yeah,
still
as
annual.
as
contract.
long as it's the same license that's on the annual commitment.
okay,
If you do a new SKU that's not on the existing agreement, that will kick off a new 12-month agreement for that new SKU.
okay,
And
so
then at that point, you could go monthly until your normal annual came around.
You could do that as well, yes. We got a question, if we still monitor former employees' emails, how do we handle that type of a situation? So what would happen there is, again, if that's being set up as a shared mailbox, as most of them are, typically when an employee leaves, we'll take the license away from it and then leave it as a shared mailbox, which you can monitor, but it's not being billed. Let's say that you had 10 employees, one of them left, and you replace them under the new agreement. We would take that employee that left, convert it to a shared mailbox, give the license to the new employee. So you've still got the 10 licenses. If, however, you had 10 employees and you went down to 9 and you did not replace that person, you would still have that 10th license that you're paying for, because that's on the agreement and you can't decrease the count. So Janet, that should have answered your question. If it doesn't, let me know. What other questions do we have? Okay, and then, okay, any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat window or in go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions. Okay, I think that probably takes care of it. Really appreciate you taking the time to learn this with us. Again, in a little over a week, be on the lookout for a quote coming over that'll come up with what you have existing and what we're moving you into. If you have any questions on these in the interim, reach out to either Rigel or Charlotte, your partner success managers. Robin's typing a question. So if you don't have any more questions, feel free to, you can go ahead and log off. If you've got more questions or you want to stay on and see what somebody else is asking, Leslie is working on a question. Leslie, you can go ahead and unmute yourself too if you'd like. And just in case, it's to the left of the leave button. Oh, okay, you don't have a mic. Okay, so Leslie's going to type in her question. Okay, we'll keep hanging out, answer Leslie's question. And again, thank you for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, everyone.